Okay, so as we prepare the circulation into the bones, we're going to start with the chair, the back of the chair to the wall, the seat facing towards you, your mat all the way up to the wall. So we're already set up at the wall. It's kind of nice. We got all the goodies next to the mat, all your props. And all you really need is your chair to start. So when you set your feet behind, you do want to feel like they're kind of behind your behind, right? Versus underneath. So when you orient your hands onto the seat, get a feel for bending through the knees, for settling back into the heels. And then whether you push the seat back, your rear, you could stay with it kind of a little bit centered versus all the way back, and then let your head lower down. It could be between the arms, it might be farther, might be higher, but we're working towards feeling the sensation in the arms, the chest, and the back. And so what I've been noticing, and when I take classes and learn that I want to focus on giving you direction on where we're trying to get feeling in the body. Okay, so when you're reaching with the arms, notice that you're reaching with the chest just as well. So if this is too much on your shoulder, could be, what you could do is you could bring your elbows onto the chair and stretch it this way. This could still be pretty intense on the shoulders. So you have those two versions, okay? I like both of them equally. So as the seat reaches back and your head centers between the arms, feel the breath in the ribs. Feel its motion out and into the back. And if it gets tiring in your arms, you can always make it a little easier and bend your elbows and bring the hands closer together and not put as much pull into the shoulders. So it's okay if you're simply working on the energetics of an inversion, which is getting circulation to the brain, which certainly changes after midlife, right? The circulation and blood to the brain changes quite a bit. We're trying to increase that in the class, the circulation to the brain. So feel the ribs. Okay, now as you slide the hands, well, for all of us, we're going to be at the edge of the chair, so my hands are holding the sides. I lift up, I walk my feet together, back. It could be closed for some of you, but farthest back is the best for this one. So when I have my thighs close in, feet as close to touching as I can, I'm going to shift my weight forward and avoid hitting the wall with your body, but see if you can sense the length of your torso. So you're moving your hips forward to feel the waist stretch. And then as you move back, I want you just to tilt back so you're almost just in a push-up position, not all the way back to that spine stretch. So you're working on strength. Inhale forward, feel the waist, feel the lift of the heart, work on that sensation in the back, and then move back so you're in that upright push-up position. Okay, now center the feet so that you walk them in, so they're underneath your hips now more. Take the feet so they're close together, and then just kick the right leg back. I guess you need a good amount of space around your practice area so you don't kick anything off of the shelf, but feel when your leg kicks back, and then motion that right knee in, right leg that is, towards your forehead, chin to chest. Inhale, stretch the right leg back and up, feel the arch through the spine. And exhale, draw the knee in and feel the spine stretch. Just feel this alternating pattern. Lift up through that right leg, feel the arch. And then feel as the knee draws in, the spine lengthening. And one more time, feel the arch through the back. And then as you slide that right knee back into bending, bring the foot under the chair. And let's keep a reach of the left foot back. So step back with the left foot, both feet. Well, clearly they could be in one track, right? Like on one level, one lane. I want you to have them in 2 lanes of leg travel. And then just sort out the sensation of hands on the chair or elbows. And the reaction in your lower back. So when we were kicking the leg back and tucking the knee in, it has a different sweep through the muscles in the torso. So now you kind of contemplate the lower abdomen, how it's moving with the breath. Okay, make sure the feet are in 2 different tracks and they're parallel. This is important so you have good balance and circulation up into your hips. Maybe you feel a stretch in your legs. And then orient the weight really into the center of the sensation of the leg. So I try to let my weight in my hands just kind of trickle away a little bit. So it's not so much impression in my palms. And bend the right knee a little bit, just a micro bend. And then I want you to turn the torso to the right. I mean, with both hands or elbows down, that's pretty minor, tiny motion. But feel how you rotate. And then of course, you're gonna put your left hand at the center of the chair and the right arm open and lift up through the arm and rotate the torso. The arm could go up, arm could reach back. And the hand could also relax to your back, right? You could sweep it around so it has a holding place in your back zone, which could slide down to the left side of the back or to the hip, but it is not a hip balanced position. It's working into stretching the hip, but also it's working with strength and stretch. So turning the torso, right, as if you're trying to get your heart to turn towards the ceiling. And then as you rotate back with the navel facing down, right hand on the chair, turn the left foot out. So my right heel is now in line with my left heel. And then that might mean something you have to change as you rotate to opening balance here on both feet. So I'm going to kind of change the focal point with naming and so forth. But our orientation is to get a strong, pulley sensation through that left hip. So just give a feel. So the weight is in the back heel. The circulation is kind of moving through the pull of the back leg up into the hip. All right? Not that you need to take your right hand off the chair, but I want you to really feel into that back foot. Lift up. Hand could be down on the hip. Hand could be up. Good. Yeah, right knee might need to bend a bit. I'd rather have you have a little softness in the knee than hyperextend the leg. But press and then release the left hand down to the chair. And let's take a motion where the hands are touching to the edge of the chair, both the side and both edges of the chair. So right on the side and the end of it, the seat, left heel up. Okay, now we step the right foot back. So how distant it should be is really up to your orientation with balance. So I just push that right foot down and then lift that left heel up. And so your left leg is up, you're kicking it up. Remember the last set I initiated the idea of kicking back. So just kind of play with this. Reaching it back, moving the knee towards your forehead. Okay, alternate the path. So it's interesting in the standing thigh, up into the kind of the meat of the leg where you can feel the density increase. Okay, so alternate several times. So it might be 4 to 5, depending on your pace. Okay, and as you take the last motion, you feel kind of that curl through the tail. And then step the left foot under the chair. Reach the right foot back, so both feet parallel. two different tracks. Right, so each of these pose patterns, one of which is a twist into the leg, one is a twist away from the leg, they have a little different footing, right? So this is two different tracks for the legs. Okay, now if you feel your hips are kind of pushing back, I want you to use the chair seat, right? Feel your right hand, actually, wait, we have right hand center, left hand motions. We'll go right into the turn for the torso. So turn to your left, lift the left arm. Yeah, if going slow is exhausting to you, you can always reach the left hand behind you and work with opening through the chest. And again, if it's too much on your wrist, what could you do? You could bring your elbow down to the chair seat. It doesn't make it easier though. It's more stretch into the hip, but it's easier on my wrist. Right, you can also put, you could put a block onto the seat. Some people would do something like make a fist, right, if it hurts the wrist. So I think that's a pretty reasonable option. But if it doesn't exhaust you and it's feeling okay, you can also work with turning that inside of the right elbow forward to the wall and see if that stacks the strength into your arm. So you're not suffering into the hand attachment at the wrist. So take a few moments longer here with the rotation. Emphasize the waist, really warming up into it. Lower the left hand down and then keep the rotation going. Turn the right foot out. Make sure the heels, right, are in the same track. So lining those up, even though the right foot's turned out. It is kind of comical because both feet sort of are turned out, even though the left foot seems parallel. Huh? But when you turn, you're trying to get this left thigh to kind of stamp down into the thigh itself. So lengthening and then reaching with that right arm up. Yeah, it would be hard to go back down to using a block for this one now, because the chair gives you such increased boost here in the vertebrae, right, creating some space. So if it feels kind of, if it's compressing here into the back, get a feel in this back here, even if you use your knuckles into the back, that you're extending, right, versus rounding and compressing. So work on, I like to feel my knuckles into that low back area, not so much the tailbone, but a little bit higher, and then see if I can just stretch out of that area. Gives a nice stretch to the waist. You can certainly bend your left knee a little bit, right? And then as the arm goes up or it stays back, massaging your side or your back. Yeah, and then feel if that right arm is lifting, you could turn your head to look down to the chair. If the left arm is turning in, you're trying to use your whole arm. But we have to end up into restoratives after this little sequence, huh? So feel that rotation through the waistband. Okay, if you feel the knee buckling in, you've got to press down into the heel. Right, keep the foot forward to the wall, left foot. Great, and then lower that right hand down. Take an up dog, so my hands clutch the side of the chair. Pivot the back foot forward, left foot back, and then shift your weight and lengthen. Now, be cautious how much you're pressing with your spine. So feel that you're working with your arms in the lift of the torso. Breathing. Hopefully you're not holding your breath until the pose is over, huh? Okay, and then as you press into your feet as much as your hands, walk them to the chair, and then let's pull the chair a little bit away from the wall and turn so that we're sitting in it. We did it. Okay, take a ball. If you don't have a ball, use a block, no problem. Either will be fine. The ball is just responsive, so you can squeeze it. So I want you to face forward from your chair. I'm just going to shift a little to the side for observation. But when you do squeeze the ball, feel if you can push in versus trying to lean forward to start. So I want you to squeeze into the ball. Keep it at the knees, right? So it's not higher up. and alternate between that pulsing position of in and center. And maybe you'll relate to a pace that works for you to breathe. But let's use the hands back on the chair seat. So I'm going to sit kind of towards the edge of the seat, not all the way to falling, but kind of close so my arms can get a little stretch. And then I'll keep it as a moderate tone in the legs, with the legs moving into the ball. And then I'll reach back and just kind of get a feel for where on the chair. Some of you, it might be the side because you don't have anything to reach under. Some of you might have a little back on the chair, and it's actually kind of perfect place for the arm to reach through so the hand can scoop around and hold onto the circulation, because we want to really stimulate this sense of the complex of the chest to open, and then to keep that elevation and extension of the spine. Right? So have the hands back. If they don't feel good to be far back, you can have them on the sides of the chair and the seat holding. That's fine. Okay, and let's take a few moments before we twist just to keep this direction of the chest open. The knees simply they're just forward. They're not trying to get farther in front. And as you squeeze into the ball, see if you can work on an inhale. And then exhale, relax the squeeze. Okay, so you might have the weight of your head kind of tilting. So if you can maybe close the eyes and alternate squeezing the ball, and just feel where the head is on top of the spine. And this would be a good one to explore just a little bit as you continue that operating pattern of squeezing and releasing. Feel if you tilt your ear to the shoulder. It's not a twist in the neck, right? It's leaning, and then tilt to the other shoulder, ear to shoulder. And then balance back in center. Let the ball just be a spacer, no extra squeeze. And then we'll take the left hand to the right leg. And here's the issue with this one, is to keep both knees, especially the right knee, to be in line with the left. So all the work is in your torso, your ribs. So when you turn, left hand is on that right leg. And as you rotate, I only laugh at it because I've had so many experiences where I say that and then I look down and my knee's starting to move its way back. So you've got to find a way to feel the knees, like visualize they're going forward. Right? Visualize they go forward. They don't slide back. You don't kind of do this wonky twist, which is kind of our daily habit with just standing in space and talking. So when you rotate, feel that right hand so it's down on the chair. You don't pinch it back to the wall, so you have a little space here. You could put the hand down at the chair seat. I like this. Anything I can get my shoulder to motion back. And if you see my knee go back, then you'll have to let me know. Okay, it's pretty small. It's not exaggerated turn. Okay, now I want you to bring the left hand back to the chair seat, chest open, and then switch sides. Keep a consistent breath, interest, right? Interested in breath. Right hand to outside of left leg. Try to keep a composure of lift out of the rib cage and turn. Now it's like you're kind of getting to know yourself a little bit on this one, noticing the stillness. Who knows? One side your knee might really comply, and it just stays across from the other knee. Usually it's our dominant leg that doesn't seem to follow directions, whatever that means. But feel as you rotate. And then as you come back into center, let's keep the ball for a few moments. Let's see if we can do a dual exercise here. So I want you to slide the feet forward, get a block. If you need to slide your feet and then go get a block, that's okay. Yeah, so keep in mind, my legs are kind of aiming down, lengthening. Like they're not entirely straight because I'm trying to hold this ball between the knees, but they're reaching legs. You know, if you get to a point in life, right, where you're not able to sit and do a forward bend, you know, from the ground, you know, seated on a chair, leaning forward is good too. This is a great exercise, right, for pelvic floor because you've got the ball, you're just kind of doing a minor squeeze to keep it. But let's take that block, so you've got it wide, and you'll reach it up. So I've got my arms to extend. You can go as far up as you want. So as you move up with your arms, bend your elbows. You might see most of me here, but you bend your elbows so the block reaches to your upper back. Okay, you've got kind of minimal core support because your legs are reaching down. So I want you to work on just gently holding that ball, holding the block, and lift the arms up with the block, of course, between the hands. Inhale. Exhale, belly towards spine, elbows bending deeper, hands moving back with the block. Alternate the motion. So you lift up, and then you bend the elbows and move the block back. Well, you don't move it back to the wall, but to your back. You could try moving it to the wall, but I just don't sense that's going to be anything but more sore the next day. So you want to get a feel of these elbows lifting, right? As best as you can. Lift the arms one last time. Okay, now we're going to keep the block situation. So I want you to slide the feet in and lower down the block, and then remove the ball. And we'll place the right foot and cross it over that left knee so the right knee motions out. You might not use the block for this. I'm not sure if you want to add things together, but I just want to offer this idea. If you need a block, one of the blocks under your left foot, if you feel like that's helpful, you can do that too. Right? If I put my block under here, all right, it's a little different stretch. It's kind of intense. I like it because it lifts things up. It might be a short thing. Maybe that's why I like this one with a block under my foot, but you can give it a try or pass if you feel like, gosh, I've got so much length in my legs, this is too much. So that's up to you. But it does kind of boost the hip a bit here. So I have my block. I'm going to keep working on this. Arms go up and then bend the elbows and take a moment where you're simply leaning forward. The reason we have the block is so we don't round the back. Okay, so it's not so critical how far you get the block back to touch your back, but that you're keeping the arms in this keen position to manifest that length out of the ribs, thus the back. So if I tip forward, I feel my hip even more. So just work with a few more breaths here. Yeah, just avoid the big hump back here. So avoid that. So the block could be helpful. You might be fine without the block, like so. You can have it down and have your hands on the chair seat. Lean forward, it's less strenuous. Okay, good. So feel where the hip circulation is in demand. Yeah, some of you might like the block quite a bit on this. Okay, now come back up. Change sides, so right foot is down, left foot crosses up to the right knee and lean forward. Yeah, I like that block a lot. So I'll put it under my foot again. It's similar. It's a similar sensation into my leg roots. This just seems like it. You know, if you're doing like a reclining leg crossover pigeon, this is seated pigeon really. This is just a very unusual way to get into the hip with the block under your foot. So when you approach leaning forward, if you decide you want to stay with this more intense option with the block overhead, yeah, you want to get the feeling for the last few moments with this block spacer that you're lifting your elbows Yeah, take caution, right? So if I'm working my arms and kind of waving them around in poses and stretching my arms, this is kind of a specific, truly tricep, but I think this is a really smart one to do for your shoulder and your chest, upper back. I like it. Okay, so come forward if you can, a few more moments. Yeah, if it's wreaking havoc on your knee, then you won't stay in it longer, right? You want to just find where it's in the hip. Again, use a block or don't. It might not work for you for other reasons than what I mentioned. Okay, and then when you come back up, remove the block for a moment here and get a feeling for when you lower that left foot and the right foot, stretch the legs forward. Okay, now get your bolster, and we won't go put it on our legs, but it's tempting, isn't it? Just to, okay, take the feet apart and take the bolster in front so that you are seated well on your chair. You can scoot back if you're concerned that you're going to slide off of the chair. And then just lean forward, scoot your bolster farther, and then brain through life. And then feeling that reach into the arms. Now, if it's unstable in your shoulders, you can take your elbows on the edge of the bolster. It's the same pose we just did, isn't it? With the arm position, with the shoulders and the triceps. Yeah, this feels great. I'd rather use the elbows than the hands. So I just like to feel the thickness from the arms into my upper back, that kind of thick, dense pull. And take a few more moments here with that reach of the armpit chest. Yeah, who knew this area could be so kind of gripped up, huh? Okay, now feeling when you have some sensation into the back. If you have your elbows on the bolster, just lift your head and then start to shift the hands onto the bolster. For those of us with hands onto the bolster already, lean forwards. Okay, I'm keeping my neck pretty stable. I'm not intentionally dropping it down. I'm using my muscles out of my spine into my arms, which is what helps our spine, right, is our arm work. Okay, so now as you trickle back, try to keep it from cat pose. Try to push and lift up. Don't tell Ace that I said that. Might come out of that space behind this door. Okay, turn around so that you're onto the ground space with your knees, but add a blanket. Okay, I think there's a couple ways we could do these lunges. And I imagine that it'll be a little, maybe a few of us might choose the option 2. But I want you to have your knees onto the blanket. 1 is probably enough, but if you want 2 blankets, stack them up. And then we'll take a step out with that right foot. So the right foot is moving to a rotation. So I step the foot out. It's not straight forward. It would touch onto my chair anyhow. But foot is turned out. And then my focus is to lean into the chair, really give my weight down to the elbows. Now, you can work with lifting the back knee. I actually think this feels pretty good. Lifting the knee. Not that I don't want my knee to touch the blanket, but it's a nice stretch from my thigh into my left psoas, right into the torso, the abdominal muscles here on the left side, even into my obliques. But you might like the knee to be down and then work on the quad. Okay, so you choose, but the right foot is turned out so the inner thigh has some direction. And almost like think about Baddha Konasana when we have our feet together, our knees out. Some of these, you could say our movement patterns have become a little bit more, I don't know if sophisticated would be the attention I bring to our shifted practice, but it has the ingredients of our beginnings, right? They're all kind of back to the element of the adductor pull. like when we have our feet together. So feel the thigh stretching down. Feel the right knee moving out. Okay, if your waist gets kind of cozy, comfy, it doesn't do much, that's okay. Your emphasis can only be so many spots, huh? Okay, and then come back to a few slow breaths. If your knee is up, it's hard to close your eyes and find any peaceful direction, but notice how the muscles, maybe tense up and focus. Breathe. You can lower the knee if it's up and come back, but a little caution here. When you place the hands on the chair, take a moment when you get ready to switch sides, when the hands come back to the hips and you work on kind of standing up from the knees, right? We're usually standing from our feet. The knees aren't going to be what your feet would feel like, right? But just get a feel for the pelvis, right? That maybe it's a little tilted for some of us. You want to get a feeling of lift out of the spine. So it's between the two tilts, right? Arching and flexing. And then hands to the seat. Right knee center, left foot steps to the left side of the mat and chair. And then you kind of lean forward. So you could start the progression from that upright position with the knee if you're comfortable with that. Some of you may not want to be on the knee. So you may go right into pushing the chair closer to the wall, but it could be right up against the wall. And then as you slide out like I'm doing here, eventually I touch and then I lean down with the elbows. So either back knee down or lift the back knee. And if it feels like, oh, I can do it, but it's only a few seconds at a time, just come back down, lower the toes, lift your nose, and feel the sensation focus into the ribs. Yeah, it's quite a circulation boost in the front of the leg. Okay, this shall be really interesting with this track. So you can get the lunges, you can get one leg at a time. Even up dog, there's a lot of muscle just to try to attain that. So what I want us to work our way towards is if your knee is up, lower it down. And then let's shift our hip back. We're going to move onto our back. So I want you to actually move all the way down to sit on the ground next to your chair, still at the wall. And you'll take a blanket. I think you should have something here. So you want to have it flat. So it's not going to be the quarter full. This is no. Yes, a little bit lower. And if this is even too high of a ridge for your neck, you can even slide it away. But I like a little padding under my brain for this one. So, but again, some of us will feel we're fine without. So you'll lower back. You've got your chair, and if it's away from the wall by now, you'll probably want to push it to the wall. You could usually use your feet. If you've got a really heavy duty chair, it might be a different thing where you have to sit up and actually intentionally move it, because we don't want the chair to fall on you. So caution there. Make sure your chair is against the wall. So you get a feeling where the seat is with the feet touching the seat, and it's at the edge. I'm on the top of the chair with my feet at the edge. Now you want your chair right against the wall. Okay, so take just a few moments here where the spine is long. Decide how far back you are from the chair. You decide. You'll find out when you try to lift. And then have a block near you. One is enough for now. Okay, so you can do two versions. The foot has a bit of, mobility on the bottom of our feet. So many bones in our feet. So, even though your hands might be used to that kind of positioning, molding into things, curling around, the feet can do those. We just have to practice. So just feel where the back of the pelvis lies into the mat. And then I want you to find a little bit of lift of the hips. So you're pushing into the chair. Now, if it starts to hit the wall or it clambers around and you don't like your feet at that part of the chair, you could reach them up so they're a little more onto the seat of the chair. But you have to kind of find your way. And the side of the chair will not work, right? It has to be directly below your legs, right? Not to the side. So you lift the hips up and then you lower the spine down. So it's pretty simple. I have my finger tips just touching to my hips, so you have that awareness. You're lifting the hips to go up. The blanket is, maybe touching to the top of your shoulders, but not below. And then lower down. Okay. So if you want to be farther back from the chair, it's all good with the directions here. I want you to start to get a little bit more lift, so you bring your arms overhead. This whole front zone has some spaciousness. And then take that time when you scoop and flex and lower down, kind of get every little segment to release into the ground. Okay, and the ground is a great prop, kind of irons it out. So let's do another one. So feel where the scoop is with the tail. It's the tail scoop. Lift up, and if your arms don't have this perfect path of movement, it's okay. You're working on feel of movement, reaching back. Good. Yeah, it's a pretty big bridge pose, isn't it, with a chair? It's a little intense. Okay, now the next place of attention is the block. So you'll have 3 different heights with the block. Those of you that are used to the big lift can kind of start to get that block at this height under the spine. But keep in mind, it's at the base of the spine you get the block. The spine gets the lift. So now when you push into your chair, you've got both hands kind of getting ready to help out. One has a block. I'm going to start with the block at the second setting because that's where most of us will probably go. It's just a little bit more realistic, right, for the bones. And I usually get a feeling where that block is horizontal. It's across my back. And then I just lay my back space on the block entirely. So I just let it center. Now there's this tilt, right? Now you have your pelvic tilt. It's not even something you have to hold on to. It's just established. So if you were to run your fingers up the spine above the block, it's nicely extended, right? So it's an extension of spine. Now, if you do go higher, I do want you to eventually see if you can get your legs to rest on the chair. So if I go higher up, it'll be fine to do that. But this is, to me, it's a little more challenging to get my legs on the chair when my block is lower. Okay, so if I try to go higher, you have the means, but it just depends on how your spine arches, right? So I wouldn't force it. If it doesn't go that way, don't keep pushing the block to try to make it happen. If it does go that way, and you get kind of surprised at your ability, and then the legs kind of track down onto the chair. The hips are higher, so they're a little more level with the chair. And they're a little bit elevated, so that connection to the chair is a little smoother. But both heights work. I think the low height wouldn't work too well, would it, on this one? Okay, now once you've established the block height, then you want to roll your shoulders down and in towards the spine. So if your blanket's pretty low, that's going to be a bit of a workout. If your blanket was really chunky under your head, you wouldn't have to really lift the chest. You'd have your blanket hold you up. So there's an argument for a higher blanket there, but I would just work with the arms kind of rolling down and in towards your sides. Let's just focus on how they move towards your back. And feel when you get your arms into that type of position, where does the weight lie into your arm? Is it on the elbow? Is it on the forearm? Is it kind of rolling into the flesh below the elbow? See if you can identify some parts of the arm, right, where that flesh doesn't get a lot of touch. So with your movement. So I'm going to try to get the palms to turn open to the ceiling. And I'm trying to relax my hands. If you get a little bit uptight about this in your back, you're not sure what you think, You can bring your feet to the chair versus the legs, and this works good too. If you're really feeling like you want to get higher and higher, right, you get your legs up to the ceiling if you're feeling so interested in something like that. Just for kicks, you can try it. Yeah, it's nice for the body to get that circulation to the brain. Yeah, it does decrease a lot when you get older, your blood flow to the brain. So there is one way to get some help is to do some inversions. So we'll do many. This is just one of another. We'll do another legs up too. Okay, so if you have your feet still on the chair or the legs, no problem. We'll come back to that. But get a feeling of your leg parts, whether they're stretching down or they're bending. Now get a feel when you have the knees bending, the feet on the chair now. Okay, I tend to hold the lip of the chair with my foot. I like that kind of orthotic support. I think that's I like that arch support with my foot. So I try to get a feeling where I'm touching with the center of my foot. Like it's kind of in a spot it's kind of moldable there. It's kind of a little bit eerie how much you could do with the chair for your foot. So I want you to push into your feet. I know the tendency for me when I try to get my hips up is I curl through my tail and my pelvis. It's where I get all the work. So I want you to try to use your feet. So feet first, lift the hips, and then get the block. You've got to kind of unroll your arms a bit to change. And then as you roll out, where are we going after this one, huh? As you roll out, you let your spine lower down. It's a little sloppy in the shoulders. Get them both about even. And then let your spine just iron out. Good. And then feel as you come into the knees just forward. I don't want you to shock the sacrum. So you want to keep the knees right where they're at. The temptation is to pull them to your chest and no. Try to let the spine iron out and just be there for a few moments with the back. So feet are up. Best thing, right? Get your feet up. It's already a little bit better. Okay. Now we'll move to the side. So no knees pulling in. I know they're still kind of up and towards you, but they're not pulling into the chest. So roll to the side. Use your hands to bring you up. And then we'll move our chair to another place. Move it off of your mat. Okay, now let's take a bolster at last. Okay, take the bolster behind you and get a couple of blankets and make the stack of blankets quarter fold. So you've got one base quarter fold, second. Some of you might have thicker blankets than these, so I don't know, you might have to decide your height dependent, because there's kind of different blankets out there. Some of the thicker ones, I bet they flatten up pretty good, but you want to have your space between your bolster and blankets enough for your shoulders. And then we'll get our sand out. So we'll take a seat in front of the bolster. We've got our belts, we've got a block, we've got our sand. So let's keep the ball nearby. In fact, maybe have the ball kind of towards the left side of your mat. And then lean back to your bolster. Okay. And lift up the hips and tuck the block under. The block is flat. The block is completely flat. So it's a nice kind of holder for my pelvis. And then when I get my sand, I want to get my head back probably now so I don't strain more. Get my sand up, and it's going to be it's going to be on your legs. So I'm getting ahead of myself here on that. Now I don't have a lot of space here, to be honest, between my props. So I've got to kind of push this around until I find that my head is completely supported. Okay. My knees stay bent for a little bit longer so I can feel how I want my bolster. So you want to feel the bolster supports your ribs. So for some of you, it might be higher. I imagine higher is probably better than too low because you don't want to start to compress your spine. So feel that that block is under you, supports you, okay? And then stretch the legs down. Oh, you might be lucky and be right at the wall with your feet. I to measure these poses out a little better, but if you want to get deluxe pose, the deluxe version would be feet touching the wall. So you get kind of everything ironed out. Doesn't mean you don't want to touch the wall and bend the knees too much, but get a feel for support, take the feet apart, and then flex the feet, open the chest, and let your head relax back. If the blankets are too high, you can take one away. You'll know if your neck is curled too much. You feel like you want a little more opening in the collar. You can lower the blanket height down. It's nice to have the height when you initiate the pose, just to get the neck even, half a minute centered, and then decide you can put it back if you don't like one blanket. If you like two, use them. Okay. Stretch the torso just via the pose and the props. And feel the arch of the spine. Gather your attention on the even rhythm of your breath. Just feel it's alternating. And letting the eyes rest into the skull. With these increased kind of sensation in the formula right now, in the kind of the sternum area, right? The upper rib space. The thoracic certainly is getting some interesting circulation, but let's kind of smooth out that thoracic a little bit because it is an arch that we're creating here. Okay, so you kind of feel the upper ridge of the rib cage. And then as you slide your feet in, notice the sand. Maybe the sand weight is kind of interesting for your pelvis, your hips, just putting that weight there. It doesn't hurt. Just let it be for a little bit longer and encourage that weight to kind of create some, like a pancake effect, right? It presses things down. It kind of flattens it out on both sides. Okay, so that lower basin where the sand is, and you might even notice digestion or any sounds, but you want to focus now that we're going to get that a little higher, okay? You don't have to push into your feet to get, well, actually you will push your feet, but you're not trying to lift up the sand. So we'll slide the sand away. Okay, did I get everyone to get their blocks nearby? Well, hopefully you got your other block nearby. Okay, so you're like, who's she talking to? Okay, so when we change this time, I want you to have your blocks beside you. We usually push down the bolster and then the block is just there. But this time around, make sure you're down to one blanket under your head. Then you'll push and walk your feet. I would just go wide with the feet because we don't need to squish the knee around. There's no reason to cause pressure on the knee. And then tilt to one side and then pull that block away. Place it beside your bolster. Get a hold of the sides of the bolster with your hands. If you got little loops, very nice. And then push the bolster down just inches. So it's under the back of the pelvis. I'm going probably about 3 to 4 inches down. But I go towards the feeling, so I can feel the pelvis center. Be sure it's enough. And here's what you might do to try is you lift your feet up, knees perk up, and then go side to side and smooth it out and warm up that lower back space. Knees go side to side. And once the knees go right to left, 4 or 5 times, you might find, okay, the bolster's in a good spot. I'll leave it there. Okay. Now, what I want you to work with is, let's just take a block. It's because I don't know, my ball's not in the right spot to do that. So I'm going to take a block between the knees, and my other block is going to be used soon too. But I want you to go to the right side and get a feel of the knees kind of moving towards your arm. There's no goal to touch my arm at all, but just feel that stretch through the back. Okay, now keep the knees going towards your chest when they move into the center, just directionally. They don't have to touch. And then knees go left and again towards the arm. So you get a little bit of pull in the back. Okay, now we're going to be adding some sand to this. So as you move your knees back in towards the chest, it's not some clever plan, it's an actual pose pattern and relax and renew textbook. So we'll take the block out, place each block besides your bolster so they're about second height, right? Second setting is the answer here. Okay. Now we'll go to the right side for purposes of sand. So I want you to lean your knees to the right. Now they're not stacked anymore, right? Remember in the beginning, we had seated on the chair, we had a ball between the knees. We're trying to keep them level. It's not going to happen now. So go away from idea of leveling and let the knees go right. And then add a sandbag here to the side. It could be closer to the knee, but I want you to use the sand for the hips benefit and the lumbar spine, right? Because that's the closest part of the back, the spine, to the leg. But as you get a feel of that touch, you can move your block any which direction. You can slide a little bit over to the right and push a little bit down. But get a feel for that left arm just open. Yeah, I love this elevated reclining twist. Every once in a while, I'll flash back to the restorative Bible and I'll see this one and I'll remember that this is clearly a nice balance, energetic position. If the sand is too much, though, you can always do it without. You can use a belt around your legs and have them connected so you can keep, it doesn't feel like you're in traction. I don't think you should add a belt if you have sand though. So stretch open the arms and feel where the head wants to turn or not. Give yourself several moments here with this stretch into the hip. Yeah, so feel where the waist is kind of wandering. Is it turning right? Is it centered? Open the chest. Back to that breath gathering. That's what we do in these classes. We have breath gatherings in our home practice. And then get the feel if the spine is somewhat centered. You're kind of turning on the axis of the spine with the knees to the right. Okay, so a few more moments here. So we get a good minute and a half. Okay, slide the sand and just bring it to the torso. So it's in the center of your body. And when you move your knees to that right side, I want you now to bring your heels towards your rear and then bring your knees pointing up. Okay.
So feel that. Can you get your heels? I know you're not going to kick your rear with your heels unless you did something kind of like that. But you want to get a feel, how do the knees, how does it stretch in the kneecap? Right? This is a good way to just get the knees to have a little stretch at the top without much discomfort. For most people, this works pretty good. But as you move your knees to the left side to switch sides, take the time to put that sand and kind of smooth it around the leg, knees to the left, block is under. And you might feel a little different or disoriented on the second side for other reasons than you can really be conscious of. So just kind of notice, okay, is it my rib center, heart towards ceiling, navel towards ceiling? That's the tricky one. I mean, you could try to push your belly around a little bit, but you don't want to be rolling your shoulder to the left. That's probably the biggest one on this one, is to keep the shoulders back and down. Yeah, and if it's hard for you, it's not abnormal, right, to have trouble getting your right shoulder down. It's pretty typical. You'd see that. The shoulder kind of rolls up, and the common is people roll to everything goes left. So you want just what goes left is the bottom half. The knees, kind of the hip, but it's pretty centered. But it's mostly the knees that go left. Okay. If you have a ruler with you in class, right? That would be good. A little measuring tape would be good. Just kind of measuring what the distance is with your knees on each side. So you can start to kind of evaluate, okay, what hip needs what side waist needs the more opening. So it's going to be a balance of the back of the waist, the side of the waist. Let's do a study group sometime. You do like a half-hour study group and get our little measuring tape out and figure that out. I have that on a notepad somewhere. Restorative study group. Okay, brain centered, or is it? Knees to left. Just breathe. And give it a little bit of time. And feeling if the breath seems to be going kind of sideways to the left, like your belly breath, if it seems to be moving directionally left, you want to try to keep the composure centered and up. A little challenging, right? Things kind of slip over on this one, so you keep back in the middle. I feel the right side of my body stretching, the hip. So I want to keep this kind of in sync. So the next, portion that we're working through is to synchronize our work and to cultivate balance. So I want you to kind of keep the focus on the right thigh. Okay. So we're not really going to move the sand to the belly this time. We're going to keep it to this leg, the right leg. So your left leg is kind of out to the side. It doesn't know what it's supposed to do now, but it's part of you, so you got to figure it out. So what I'll do is it's not true. Fact check here. I'm going to pull my sand with both hands up to the top of the leg. So I do pull it to my belly, and then the right leg goes down, left leg goes in towards center. I've got my sand on the top of the right thigh. Okay. Now my right foot tends to turn out. So to make this really good, how far am I away? I'm going to scoot down so I'm right to the wall. Okay, blanket goes with me. It's going to take me a moment to get there, but it'll be better for your leg alignment, your hip alignment. So now you're still in the bolster. You might have to be, playing around to get in the wall. You want to be able to push into the wall with the foot, right? Maybe if you're at the baseboard, you feel up at the wall. That's okay. That feels better in my back with that height. Another way you can do that is you can put a block under your heel. Even better. You're really working it. That would be a very traditional one to do, right? Block under hip is in here with the height of the bolster. So I'm content with this version. It doesn't feel difficult in my back, but if you have some back complaining going on, just get a block under your foot. Okay, so you might have to get up and move around a bit. Now get a belt, right leg is down, sand is on the top. If you want to be sandless, that's okay. And those of you that have your belt looped, you're going to somehow get it under your left foot. So the left leg goes up. If you need to pull your knee in and scoop it under your knee and then under your foot, wrangle in that foot. You may lose your sand in the process. But as that right foot is pushing into the wall, right, if you're starting to have the craving for a block under your foot, then just take a break and get it. And then pull that right foot so you're stretching the bottom of the foot. Get a good pull. So if this is kind of tiring on your wrist, it's just too much. It's a little bit of an opposite pulley system than when we have our hand on the chair earlier. So it ought to be okay, but sometimes that's not how it works when we're feeling our body. So if it just ain't working out, here's the second option with the belt. So you can make the loop a little bit smaller, or actually a lot smaller. Lot, so that your hands could be together in the belt, right? Palms together, and then hold this way, right? So it's a little different. You're not squeezing the belt to pull. You decide, give yourself a few more moments with this exact position. So the leg is straight up, and it may be going towards you a little bit, but be careful because your foot will come off the wall if you're using the wall at all. But if I go this way, then my foot peels off more. Okay. I don't want any foot peel off. So keep pressing into the belt. Okay. Lengthen out your back. If your right thigh isn't really responding much with gripping, that's okay. Just push into your foot. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back to the loop. So I want us all to take our belt, make a big loop. So we all have the loop again. And then make sure it's really big loop. Big loop. Bring it behind your head. If it's too big and you're now trying to lift your head up to get into the belt or you're dragging, you want your belt to the center. Now, it doesn't have to be occiput, which is the contour, right at the back of your head, the little indent at the base of it seems like it's base of the skull, but it is that indent into the back of the skull, the shelf. So I like to encourage you to let your head relax back into the belt. Some of us might be touching the blanket a little bit. Some will work on the foot pushing forward into the belt. Yeah, but see if you can explore this variation so it's kind of comforting. Yeah, my arms are just resting besides the bolster, very casual. They're not in any exuberant chest opener. Give it a few more moments. Let's see if you can release some of this quadricep, even on the top leg. And if it's upside down, and you can play with moving your head back, tightening the belt if you like, accepting what you got. Okay, now when you do switch sides, get your hands to the belt, slide it off your head, and then I want you to swap the leg pattern carefully. So just get the belt off of your foot, bring your knees both up, move the sand to the left leg, bring the left foot down. It could stretch a little different pressure on the wall if you've got, and most of us have a little bit of differences with the tone of our foot on the ground when we walk, our dominant leg, so forth. So you just kind of see if you can feel the pelvis levelized at first with the right knee popped up. Kind of like you're wagging your tail and leveling your hips. And then you're going to kind of change that orientation and get your belt. If you need to bend your left knee to get your belt under your foot, that's pretty normal. Right, so we get the belt to that right foot, and then we stretch up into the belt, push, find the resistance. Think of a standing pose, right? But you're upside standing, upside down standing. So you're still kind of pushing. It is different than standing, though, isn't it? How you put effort into it, because your body orientation's a little shifted here. And you could spend a half hour just doing 3 poses and trying to figure out your balance and your joints. It gets a little more subtle as time goes on. So as you get a feel of the lift in the heel, again, you can make the belt loop smaller, put the hands together. Getting that lift up into the heel, flexing the foot, resting the eyes. And make sure you get some time where it's very calf oriented, a lot of calf work. Yeah, this will come in handy because we'll do a little side sage work and then we'll go legs up. So it'll feel like we'll come right back to this lift when we put sand on the feet again. Well, we haven't done that yet, but when we do it last. Now take your belt if you got your loop still set. If it felt like it was a little long last time, not the hold, but the belt, you could make it a little shorter of a loop, but let it be moment by moment. So it's hard not to be, compare one side specifically, but get a feel when you're on this side now. How does your foot feel at the wall if you're using that? Are you able to push, or is it all about the top leg? And maybe you like the leg kind of shifting back a bit. So you might tighten up the belt. Yeah, feel that circulation through the back body. Breathing. It only helps. Okay, now when you get the feel of the muscles right into the back of the thigh, upside down, right? I don't know if you could say that's, maybe this is right side up. I don't know what your leg doesn't determine that, huh? It's your mind, but get a feel for the stimulation in the legs. And notice what's kind of awake. And then give a little slack so your head pushes back and that stretches the leg. Your limbic brain. Bend the knee, hands behind your head, slide the belt away. Bend the knee even more, slide the belt away. And then as you take sand off through that leg, kind of get a feeling here now, the sand goes away for a moment. And then you're just going to roll to your left side, slide down the bolster. So you're just still on it. It's still on your horizontally on the mat. And now you'll take a side sage. This group is talented. So we'll find a way into this one as creatively as we can. So you'll place that ball, the inside of the left leg, the right leg, sorry. Take your blankets. If you want to use your chair behind you or your block overhead, you can do that. Seems like the chair would be a little bit of a workout to get that behind me. I'll pass. But when you add your sand to your side, right, you're going to support your hip. And then let the body reach through that right side chamber, up and over. Sand is an option, right? But it's nice to have maybe on the hip or the waist. You can put it higher. You can keep it down so it kind of helps pin the hip. And let the right foot be free of pushing into a wall at this point. So you're distant enough that you're kind of working through the side slope of the body, the waist, the movement of the rib cage. And relaxing the weight of your head into the blankets. A lot of deep inner kind of threading today. So let these final poses be centering for you. Notice if there's anything that's kind of holding and gripping. Maybe for me, I noticed my left thigh was not quite in a centered spot. So if I pull it up next to that bolster still, then I can lean into my left ribs. I feel like it's weight bearing. So little movements is okay. You don't have to be still entirely. But notice that stillness. And when it centers into the breath. With that pull of the arm overhead or the side, let's all kind of meet at the place where the arm is besides you, the right arm. It could be that it's down the bolster next to your left arm. It could be on the side of the sandbag. Okay, and feel how the body kind of rotates a little bit to the ceiling. Okay, so let that sand slide away. You can just kind of nudge it. Usually it'll just fall right away. And then bring your right knee in towards your left. Roll into the left rib space. Try to get your ribs to press down. And then when you shift the side, you take the focus of rolling to that right side. So you're going to turn to the center. And when you go to that right side, you want to get a feel for, feeling the hips in the middle. And then swing the hips down under you. And then so you have enough balance between the two sides, especially when you go one side to the next, which is really rare, right? Usually there's something in between. So just trying to keep it in line today with the pacing of the poses, getting them all in. So you have that side piece with the sand on the side of the hip or the waist. And it could be both places. It could be a little hip, it could be a little waist. And when you feel that left arm moving, it could stay on the bolster across, could be on your side, could be kind of flapping around, right? And if reaching seems to be the gold standard for you, just try that on and notice, is that the most helpful position for you at the moment? It might be the opposite. So if it works and you can sustain that and feel that liveliness in the rib cage, it could still be pretty lively if the arm is just open to the left too. Okay, so the arms are interesting conduits, right, for the circulatory system, I think. Even more so than the legs at times, because of the connection to the ribs and the heart and the lungs. Okay, the weight of your head resting into the blankets is key. Let them go. Let your head go. Feel kind of the slinkiness of the waist, right? There is a lot of contour because we put something underneath our waist area to kind of push it up and to stretch it thoroughly. So it kind of pulls the torso. It's a pulley, right? So when you feel that, I want you to just let the body weight kind of sink into right hip. Sink. Okay, let that sand slide off. And then rotate. Now this time you're going to turn a little to the right just to come up and slide the bolster to the wall. Okay, so I got my bolster right here at the wall and I got my sand. Oh, so good. Then I pull in one blanket A little different option would be to turn your blanket so it's straight from the bolster back, right? So you have that whole spine-wise blanket. Yeah, I haven't tried this one for a long time, but this used to be something we would work with, is this kind of height, because I'm short, so that would go up there. But you could try it. You might go, oh gosh, this is wonderful. And you might think, oh, doesn't work for me. So you can try things out. You could do it simple like you did before, just the blanket there across for your head. And so come on up, try not to fall off your bolster. Sit with your rear like you're sitting bones at the wall. And then you want to get on the very side of the bolster and then roll almost to the other side. Maybe you're lucky and you get off to the other side and then try to get back up. Okay, so give it a try, how you're going to balance out the position. This gives a little bit more of a rising effect with the blanket, but again, it either works or it doesn't. You know, you just have to figure out what you're in the mood for with your props. Whether you use sand, whether you even use a wall. Maybe your legs are up on the couch or the bed or the chair. It's just good to get upside down. This is your only homework, right? Is to get legs up, whether it's shoulder stands or it's legs up the wall. Get them up upside down, get more blood to the brain. It's key. So if I have my legs with a little spacing, it's not necessarily the best, like makes it better. But you do want to get a feeling so your sand can be on your feet. So there's a little parting at the feet so the sand doesn't just fall off the side. But as the hips balance, mine are pretty, there's a little bit of a waist curve in this position, less with the blankets though, under my back. Yeah. And then the kidneys are definitely a little bit fluffed up here. They have a little bit of pressure. More when you have, more props under them. And then flow the arms open so the chest can kind of unravel to your content, whether the arms are lower, whether they're straight out. Cactus might be something you just have done so often in this pose that you think that's the best way. But if it seems like your shoulders are getting compression and tension in cactus, you might be best with the arms kind of flowing down. Keep in mind you want to relax the heart. And if my arms are higher than my heart, it's not going to relax my heart. The heart rate won't shift the blood pressure very well. So you want to have it heart level or a little below. And then as the spine has that little stimulation from the lift of the legs, feel the breath centering and relaxing. Eyes closed. If you have an eye pillow, it's on probably. And feel the attention where it remains in the body. And part of the word attention is tension. So see if you can settle and find some ease. So feeling the abdomen expand and relax. Whether it's on the in or the out breath. Kind of notice that you play the body like an instrument in these longer holds, right? You can feel the coordination of your breath. When you get kind of busy with your brain connecting to it, see if you can connect into your body, into your muscle memory. You're resting the fingers. Still the hands might feel kind of muscular because there's usually quite a bit of tone in our hands. I imagine that happens most of the day, but feel if you can let the fingers relax, kind of coiled in. And then as you bend through the legs, be aware, like eyes awake, aware if you're going to start to transition your sand. And then you get a feel when the feet come away from the wall, the knees bend, and then as you let the sand either fall overhead or you place the sand to the side, then as you remove that, you can now bring the knees towards the chest. It's taken this long to get the knees to chest, but here we go. You can feel that release in your back, the wave of the back. Okay, and when that stretch occurs, you notice how the hips are kind of in this comfy space of lift. And then when you come around to sitting, you take your moment of rocking. You might really have to get into a compact little shape when you come over to the side. And as you come up, little cannonball shape, come up and out of that cannonball shape sitting. Yeah, get a feel. Maybe you place one of your blankets because I know how cold you might be this time of year. Place it over, but blankets are grounding, right? They still give us a sense of touch. So there's other than the warmth. And then feel the shoulders back to the wall and kind of greet the awareness in your body from practice. Take a moment as we collaborate our energy with breath. Bring your hands up to the space in front of the heart. And just kind of feel that tickle of breath into the nose. And then inhaling and exhaling, bowing into the space behind your heart.